Well, it's not often that we welcome to the show a person who has climbed Mount Everest and is running for president of the United States. We have that guest today. Gary Johnson was governor of New Mexico from 1994 to 2003. He left his state with a $1 billion surplus. He is running for the nomination of the Republican Party for President of the United States. You can visit his website at GaryJohnson2012.com. Governor, welcome to the show.
Carl, great to be on with you this morning, and I'm calling in from Santa Fe, which is where I live part of the time, and it's like 7 degrees here this morning.
One of the prettiest places on earth. I love Santa Fe, New Mexico. In fact, I love your state.
I'll say the same about Portland and Oregon both.
Governor, we're a progressive radio station, and we have some conservatives and independents who listen to us as well. You're a guy who supports gay marriage. You're for legalizing marijuana. You want to let the Patriot Act expire, bring our troops home from Afghanistan, and balance the federal budget. You sound like a guy I can believe in. Tell us more.
Well, I think that actually reflects what a majority of Americans think, which is the notion of smaller government, and along with the notion of smaller government, the notion that government get out of our private lives and let us make decisions that only you and I should make. So the overarching, I hate to use a broad brush, but the fact that most people are fiscally conservative and socially liberal, I think using that broad brush, that's where I'm at.
I agree with you. You know, the biggest story about your candidacy is your exclusion from the debates. I think you were in, what, 1 or 2? The Republican debates?
You know, I've been excluded from 14 of the 16 debates.
14 of the 16.
Yeah, and the issue has been that I've been excluded from the polls that determine who gets in the debate.
Right.
The last Fox debate, Fox chose to interpret those rules as the last 5 national polls where my name was in the poll, which I thought was really fair.
You know, we had Governor Romer on last week, and I don't agree with him on a lot of issues, but I'm 100% behind him as far as getting the big money out of our system of politics and our elections. And I just think it's absolutely outrageous that a former governor such as yourself of New Mexico, a former governor of Louisiana, and member of the House of Representatives not included in these debates. It tells me that part of the system is just rotten.
Well, it's reflective of the whole, which is this system is up for sale. It's not fair. People with money, groups with money, corporations with money, they pay for loopholes, and Congress has their hands out to take that money and to grant those loopholes. I think that the political system that from these debates is really along those same lines. I mean, how do you make a choice when everybody on stage really is the same? I mean, just take away the visual image and mute the voice, and who's to say who's speaking?
Our guest is Gary Johnson, former New Mexico governor. He's running for the Republican nomination for president. You can read more at GaryJohnson2012.com. I believe I watched a video not long ago of you going to Occupy Wall Street in New York, and you at least listened to the occupiers there. What did you learn?
Well, I think I share in the outrage of Occupy Wall Street, and that outrage is that this country is up for sale, that it's not fair, that it's not a level playing field. And Carl, of course, this is what I'm out to pitch, is as governor of New Mexico, it was all about a level playing field. It wasn't about politics. It was about issues, and good government was easy. It wasn't hard. So I share in the outrage of Occupy Wall Street. It's not fair. The system is inherently not fair, and that's because it's up for sale, and politicians sell it.
Our guest is Gary Johnson, former New Mexico governor. Read more at GaryJohnson2012.com. Governor, you described, and I consider myself a liberal, and I am very liberal on social issues. But a lot of people think because I'm a liberal, I want huge government. I don't want huge government. I want enough government, but I don't like waste in government. In fact, I've said on the show, I would love to have the job to get in there and root out waste. I'm a little OCD, and I think I would love to go there and do it. As governor of New Mexico, you exercised your veto 750 times in 8 years.
Yes, I may have vetoed more legislation than the other 49 governors in the country combined.
Give us a sense of what some of those items were, Governor, that you vetoed.
Well, the majority of them had to do with spending. The majority of them had to do with the fact that the legislature, if you will, kind of doles out special favors. And these are interest groups also that are out for money. And I argued that, you know what, this is a real issue, but for dropout rates, for example, in Albuquerque, just because you appropriate $250,000 for the dropout rate in Albuquerque, is that going to affect the dropout rate in a positive way? I stood up and said, no, it's not, and don't we allocate tens of, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for schools in Albuquerque? Isn't that their job in the first place? So the $250,000, in my opinion, was just $250,000 that was lip service to, gee, I as a legislator, I as the legislature care about dropout rates. And as governor, yeah, I care about dropout rates, but this $250,000 isn't going to make any difference at all relative to those dropout rates. So let's save that money, or let's put that money into the whole pot where everybody accesses it equally, as opposed to those that are well-connected politically. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of legislation that affected the bedroom. What you and I could or shouldn't do in the bedroom, there was a lot of criminalizing of activity that I could have found myself engaged in the same activity accidentally. Like there was a pornography bill that was going to make it criminal for parents of kids that were in possession of pornography. Well, holy cow, what power do parents have over what potentially their kids are in possession of, and so they're going to criminalize parents for that act? Isn't that going to happen accidentally?
Governor, I see so many state legislatures now introducing or passing bills which are clearly unconstitutional and wasting time and money in doing it. We have a question from Art in Aloha, Oregon. Art, you're on with Governor Gary Johnson.
Thank you very much, Governor. It's a pleasure to hear your positions and everything. But I keep hearing not Carl here and other progressive talk show hosts and everything taking on the situation that the Congress is, quote, up for sale, as you say, and I quite agree. And I think most Americans agree, too. Now, the question is, okay, it's not so much the Congress. Okay, yes, that's one thing, but it's the idea, how do we get rid of the lobbyists? How? Okay, I don't hear anybody saying anything about how can we restrict them or even put them out of business, and that's my question.
Okay, Art and Governor.
Well, you're really taking a broad brush or a broad stroke at this. I'm promising three things if elected president. One is to submit a balanced budget. The other is to veto legislation where expenses exceed revenue. And then lastly is to advocate on the part of throwing out the entire federal tax system and replacing it with the fair tax. If you haven't checked out the fair tax, check out the fair tax.
It's not the flat tax.
It's not the flat tax. Right. It's the fair tax. And I think when you create a level playing field when it comes to taxes, that lobbyists, many of those go away, because there aren't going to be any deductions that will be up for sale.
Right.
Everybody gets treated the same.
Governor Gary Johnson with us, GaryJohnson2012.com. You are seeking the Republican presidential nomination, but you have flirted recently with the idea of a third-party run, possibly as the Libertarian Party nominee. Your thoughts?
Well, just that I have been excluded. I've been a Republican my entire life, but I feel like I've been hung out to dry by the Republican Party for not standing up for the fact that I'm not in the polls that determine who gets into the debates. Mm-hmm. And I think that I did serve successfully as a two-term governor of New Mexico. So, it's about the message. It's not the messenger, it's the message. And I don't hear it being said anywhere. And so in the notion of being able to continue to talk about the message and potentially bring change to America, yes, I am looking at the libertarian, potentially running as a libertarian here. And like I say, message doesn't change, but perhaps they're reflecting what needs to take place in this country better than the other two parties.
Governor, one last question. At the head of the interview, I mentioned you climbed Mount Everest. Our state treasurer, Ted Wheeler, has done the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii. I know you've done that too. You tell us very quickly about Mount Everest and the triathlon.
Well, I've done Hawaii 4 times. I've been an athlete my entire life. And in all of that context, I think that life is a journey. It's not a destination. If you make it a destination, you're going to be sorely disappointed. But if you make it a journey, which is to get up every morning and enjoy what it is that you do and to pursue those things that you enjoy, I think as a result of that, you live a life that, well, in my opinion, you're it's one of happiness. It's fulfillment because it's all you can do is to try and do your best at everything you can do every single day. But if you make it a destination, like I have to get to the top of Mount Everest, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Now, life's a journey, but I did get to the top of Mount Everest. I got to tell you, that was pretty cool.
You know, I just watched a documentary a couple weeks ago that won an Oscar for Best Documentary some years ago about the man who skied down Everest, which was pretty amazing, and it gave me new appreciation for anyone who attempts and gets to the summit. Governor, thank you for spending a few minutes with us from Santa Fe, and best of luck to you.
Carl, thank you very much.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Sure. That's former Governor Gary Johnson, the state of New Mexico, calling